Welcome to the weekly podcast dedicated to amazing people with incredible journeys. But how did they get there? Who were the characters that impacted their stories? And how are they paying it forward now? Sit back and be inspired to go out and make a difference in the origin stories of the people you know, and even some that you don't. Welcome to the prequel.
What's up, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Prequel Podcast. I am your host, Mike Azzolina, and I'm so grateful that you're here to join me for our fourth official episode. I'm so sorry about the lag between episodes. That's entirely on me. I have a bunch recorded, but due to some travel and elbow surgery, I haven't been able to really quite sit down and edit, and I finally have had the opportunity to do that. So I'm really excited to bring you our most recent episode and appreciate your patience as I work through all of that chaos to get to this point. So before I get to our guests, I do want to briefly just tell a story. This is a storytelling podcast, so this story actually I feel like is really important for people to hear when it comes to reconnecting with people. So it feels forever ago, I was heading on to a trip to Knoxville, Tennessee. And I had a really early flight, like 6 a.m. And I was sitting in the airport, did a video real quickly for the website, the Facebook page, Twitter, all the above. And they start boarding the plane. And, zombie at 6 a.m., right? Like, I'm walking onto the plane and taking my time, eyes straight ahead. I'm like, where's my row? I just want to sit down, put my music on, and fall asleep. But all of a sudden, I feel someone grab my arm. And I look to my left, and there is a friend that I have not seen or talked to in a little bit of time. And I looked at her, and she was like, "Hey," and I was like, "Hi," and I kept walking. So I apologize for my reaction, Megan. It was probably not the most excited. It just caught me off guard. So I sat in my seat, and no sooner that I sat down did I get a text message asking where I was heading, how long my layover was, if we could connect when we got to our layover in Charlotte. And I said, of course we can. And my point in telling you this is that if there is someone that you have not had a chance to talk to in a little bit of time that has impacted you in some way, and you kind of miss that connection, try and reach out to them after listening to this podcast and just remind them that they're important to you and that you appreciate what they've done to add value to your life. So for me, Megan was really helpful in my decision to take the next step away from the principal role and into the role that I'm in now. And I'll always value those conversations and her help in getting me to this point. So when we go a lag without talking to people who have done those sorts of things for us, it does, it feels good when you get a chance to actually talk to them again. So our time spent in Charlotte was fun. We laughed and, we went our separate ways and whatnot, but certainly appreciate all she did for me and her advocacy for reading literacy all over, the state of Pennsylvania and beyond is what she's doing now, and bringing awareness to the need to step it up in literacy across this country so that we can get ourselves on the right track. I think what she says is literacy for all. So Megan, keep up the good work. Maybe we can get you here on the prequel at some point. But when we talk about advocates, I'm really excited to have on the show tonight Rita Farruggia, who is the CEO and founder of HappyBeingWell.com. And when I think about self-care, and from this point on, I will always think of this conversation with Rita, because the conversation that I just had with her is one that defines someone who's truly aware of what it takes to give value to others' lives. And that starts with looking inward and really understanding yourself and what you need to be able to give to others. And this conversation digs into that idea. So I'm not going to hold you here any further. I'll react after the show. Without further ado, I'd like to introduce and bring into the studio, the prequel studio, none other than the founder and CEO of HappyBeingWell.com, Rita Farruggia. All right, everyone, welcome into the prequel studio, and I am honored to be joined tonight by Rita Farruggia, the founder and CEO of HappyBeingWell.com. Rita, welcome to the prequel.
Hi, Mike. I'm happy to be here. I'm excited to have this conversation with you.
Yeah, I thrive on stories, right? We talked about this before we started, and you and I already kind of have a story because we were supposed to record this a couple of weeks ago, and I was in Knoxville, Tennessee, where apparently Wi-Fi just doesn't exist, and your grace and flexibility was super appreciated. So our stories already align in a really positive way. So thank you for that, Rita.
Yeah, you know what? I've been there before. I think we all have. When life just happens, something comes up, and I'm going to be understanding, and I think everybody should be. I mean, this is life. Things just
Yeah.
happen.
And it did, and it was up to the dial. So I appreciated that, and certainly your story caught my eye as I found you floating out there on the internet. And I want to start our conversation with you telling us about happybeingwell.com. Just tell us what you do on there, what your mission is, and sort of what brought you to this point. What brought Happy Being Well to the forefront of the internet, because it's doing really well. I've loved reading about it. So tell us about it, Rita.
Yeah, so Happy Being Well is exactly, the name. Like everything about happybeingwell.com, the products, the education, the tools are all designed so that you can live happy being well. And I've personally had experience like a long journey in order to really live from that place like most of the time and be able to hold space living happy being well because I mean, hey, personal development is $1 billion industry, and as we get older and we go through this adulting, and we have more and more responsibilities in our adulting, and then we have life happening. We start to realize, oh my God, there's a reason why personal development is a $1 billion industry, right? No one taught us how to live happy being well while juggling a very demanding North American busy life, navigating through relationships, navigating through relationship with yourself, getting to know yourself, dealing with your emotions, the chaos, the mind chatter, because if you're not aware, you're allowing the outside world to dictate your choices on a very subconscious level, covertly, just through all of the messaging that we get through media, through our peer groups and such. And, and also too, if you don't deal with your childhood as well, like we don't live in a perfect world, and we definitely live in a duality. And I think that, there's a level of delusion amongst, varying degrees of disillusion or illusion if we don't deal with the negative events or situations, and they don't have to be macro. They could be little things like if you're bullied, or if you had a alcoholic parent or what have you, or if you're bullied by a sibling even. And it's so easy to just not acknowledge those things because we need to get good marks in school. We need to get into that good university. We need to get into I want to work for this corporation. We live in a very, and nothing wrong with that. I'm just saying that we can get tunnel vision towards progress in terms of our careers, places that we want to go and see and travel. Meanwhile, we may keep, dating the same partner over and over again. It's toxic, or we have toxic friendships and we just tolerate these things, or whatever negative vice it is, or you just keep repetitively making wrong choices. Those are the things that I think most people neglect because they're so busy doing things that are appeasing their ego, or what society tells us we should be doing in order to feel a sense of progress, right? So anywho, the products that are on there were all products that calm my nervous system down, like aromatherapy items such as sage, essential oils, so I can meditate better. Believe me, meditation was a very difficult thing for me to do when I started because overthinking, I think is a very common symptom amongst everybody because we live in a very demanding and very busy, chaotic environment around our society with so many distractions. So our mind is always going to be like, oh, what do I have to do today? Oh, I got to go to the grocery store. Oh, I have to pay the bill. Oh, I have to pick up the kids from soccer or whatever it is, right? So I found for me, when I used aromatherapy, it helped calm me down because smell is very powerful. It's a very powerful, you associate a particular smell to a particular state of mind, or even can trigger memories. So say you had a father and he construction sites, maybe he took you with with him, whatever. I can't speak right now. I didn't drink enough coffee today. So the smell of, sand dusk is, reminds you of those wonderful memories of you bonding with your fathers, right? So it's a very powerful state association. And also candles and crystals for also help with meditation as well, or just calms you down if you want to unwind after a day just by staring at the candle flame. And of course, everything being natural and not having any chemicals in the products obviously help. You don't want to, be burning candles that have chemicals. It just releases the toxins into the air. Same thing with your essential oils that you use. And essential oils are good for a multitude of reasons. You can make your own perfumes as well. It's not just for aromatherapy. And of course, we have leggings for the girls so that they can do their yoga and meditation and hiking and such. So that was really the passion behind it, is because I use those products for my daily wellness lifestyle. And and it was really a mission for me to always find them, because I always had to go to multiple different stores. And whenever I discovered something, like for example, I didn't know crystal bookends existed. I was like, oh wow, that is so cool. And I didn't know crystal kitchen accessories existed either. Like, oh, that's so cool. All right, so it was always this haphazard discovery process. And same thing with especially my skincare, and all my facial masks are all natural, and that was always a mission for me to find all natural, like literally all natural with no preservatives. So that's what I decided to do. I have a marketing background, so I decided to, put all of those products into one place. So I basically made the store for me, person that enjoys all of those things, but it's in one place, and I don't have to go to multiple different stores.
And you made it for you, but I'll tell you what, I showed it to my wife as I was, getting ready to do the show and talk with you a little bit. And she became like instantly obsessed with the website and all of the items that you sell on it. So you have a brand new customer. So if you see anything come along the lines from Andrea Azalina, that's who that is, Rita. That's who that is. A couple of things struck me as you were speaking about the website and how you got to it. And one of the items that really stuck out to me were you're processing these events that could have happened, these traumas, these experiences. And I do often say to listeners that, our prequel is made up of all sorts of things, all sorts of journeys. We have prequels that are really positive. We learn from the positive things, the positive people in our lives. But we also learn from those negative experiences as well. We take things from those experiences and use them to determine the path that we want to move on. It's as I was looking through your website, one of the things that struck me was your mission in helping people create magic in their lives. And that gave me goosebumps, right? Because often we do get caught in the trap of social media and overthinking the news stories that we see on there, or overthinking what somebody said to us that day, or going back to a time where we were treated poorly. And it's hard to refine that magic. It is hard sometimes to refine what drives us and refine what makes us happy. Like, to rediscover those pieces can be really challenging. Have you found that this website, that this business, this company, this empowerment that you've given to people outside of your world has brought magic to your own life at this point?
Yeah, absolutely. Because I think, I think we all think that everyone's so well versed in personal development, but it's not true. I think it's because we're in our little niches or little social circle, and we tend to attract people that are like us. So, So there's always more and more people needing to spread education and inspiration in terms of, like you said, you lose that first lose the passion or drive, the fuel, in order for you to live happy, being well, a lifestyle that allows you to be happy, being well, or wanting to, not being stuck in waking up and complaining and doing the same things over and over again because it's habitual, it's familiar. But you're not really happy, but because it's familiar, you feel safe, but you're really not happy. And ultimately, if you keep going down that road, it's not really safe. It's an illusion. I would say, the catalyst really, and I think it's most often missed, is because, again, people kind of outsource their authority to others, right? And because so afraid to make the wrong choice, so afraid to make the wrong mistake. So, hey, I'm not going to make it, I'm not going to do it. I'm just going to let whatever happens in my external world kind of dictate to me what choices I should make, or what's the next cool trend, or what is everybody else, following the herd type of mentality. So I think, it's because people really need to take the time and invest into getting to know themselves and strip away, all of those external noises. And for me, that was spending a lot of time alone. And I ended up really enjoying the solitude and peace and tranquility to be able to have the time to reflect, hear my own thoughts, and enjoy my own company, and really invest and develop a habitual meditation routine. Meditation, I think people often misunderstand what really that would mean in the long term when you do cultivate a meditation practice. Yes, it's about quieting the mind, but ultimately, if you actually, you're not going to have magic in one meditation session, or if you meditate for a week. It really happens. You really have to do it ongoing, consistently, as your day-to-day lifestyle, because the more and more you do it, your intuition increases. So when you meditate progressively, you start to kind of go into your body more. You have an awareness of what's inside you internally, and you tune out the external. So when you are an advanced meditator, you can meditate, say you live in a city, and there's car horns and such, and you're in your condo, and even if you close the balcony, you can still hear it. You'll still be able to meditate because you've advanced to a higher level of concentration to tune out noises outside of you, to be able to go in. So what happens is, you can hear your breath more, your heart rate more, you understand where you're breathing from, things like that. And it just, you become more creative, because you're going in and you're living more in your inner world. So that's where the magic really happens. You start to really, intuition is very powerful. That's when you understand what's your true voice, what's your real inner voice, because this is why advertisers and marketers are geniuses. People start to adopt, a desire from something that they've listened to or watched, maybe from a commercial or any, it could be even a movie sometimes. And they may not even recognize it because it's such a, like a jingle or whatever, because it's so hypnotic. And plus we're busy. You might be busy listening, doing something else, and you heard it in the background, right? So when you become more advanced, tuning in, you're not going to be as influenced by your external so much. You'll be able to differentiate what's your real voice, what's your true passion, as opposed to what's been implanted into you and then you've been parroting. That's where people get tripped up. It's, because they're not really knowing who their true selves are, what their true values are, what their true beliefs are, what brings them true joy, because that's when your inner genius comes out, not when you're trying to mimic and be somebody else, because that's their paradigm, that's their inner makeup. You can't be somebody else.
That's beautifully said. And as you were talking and you were speaking about, advertisers and marketers and how those things can catch you and suck you in and make you want that thing, I immediately go to the Burger King commercial that's out right now. That song about having it your way. And I'm a huge Philadelphia Phillies fan, and they were in the World Series, and it felt like they were on that commercial was on every single inning. And no, I didn't go get a Whopper, Rita, but I totally sang that song over and over again. Another thing that you mentioned as you were just speaking that caught me was that idea of not really knowing yourself for a couple of reasons. One, like you said, falling into that world of what other people are doing, but also falling and getting stuck in your comfort zone. And someone once told me that nothing great ever happens in the comfort zone. And so can you talk to us a little bit about your journey to creating Happy Being Well, and was there a moment where you had to come out of your comfort zone a little bit, and what did that feel like for you? And now that you've done it and you're there and you're doing this thing, what would you go back and tell Rita, who was sitting in her comfort zone?
That's a good question. I mean, prior to Happy Being Well, I've always been really into personal development, going to seminars, reading the books. I even ran a women's group in my home, and where we would discuss spiritual, how to spiritually evolve, and then I ran a meditation afterwards. And I would, even take on some one-on-one coaching after work. I was working in, I was a corporate marketing professional. So I just got to the point where, I decided to mesh two worlds together, my marketing and my wellness lifestyle, my passion for wellness and personal development into one. And to get out of my comfort zone, I guess that would just be leaving corporate for good. That's definitely leaving a comfort zone. But I just kind of just ran with it because I was kind of doing my own thing, I guess you could say, on the side, while doing the full-time corporate career thing. With what I was doing in terms of running, spiritual little groups, and I was doing, social media marketing as a freelancer as well. So, on the side, so I did have my toe in the water, as you could say, in terms of, I guess, doing a side hustle, I guess you could say. So I don't know. I just I kind of ran with building Happy Being Well, because I was just so passionate about it, and I developed a plan for it. Before, like, as I was leaving corporate, I was running out the plans, and so I was doing it very methodical, So, but again, that's my background, so I knew what to do in terms of the build.
Yeah, I had left, we talked a little bit before the show, I'd left, public education not long ago, and didn't know that was huge comforts. I'd been in public ed for 16 years. So leaving, that world felt very odd to me, and it still does. I'm still only out about 4 months now, and I don't know. I when I asked you what would you tell Rita in her comfort zone, I don't know what I would tell Mike. I don't know exactly what advice I would give to myself in that prior life, because I loved what I did, but there was a choice I had to make, and now I'm very happy, but I don't know what I would go and say to myself to get out of that space. So I appreciate your taking your two worlds and connecting them and making something like the ultimate passion project out of it, which kind of leads me to the next part of our discussion, which is the story. You've given us part of the story about Happy Being Well and, the building of the business. But I love knowing the experiences or the people that drove people such as yourself to the success. or to the decision. So, as you think about what was the root of Happy Being Well and your journey, what experiences or people impacted you, whether that be positively or negatively, to create such a space that you've created for women all over the globe?
Right. Well, I'm going to say it's really been an ultimate true like journey, because I've always, like, even since high school, I've always been in personal development, like in terms of, I would say, dabbling. I remember buying books on, how to improve your self-esteem, and I was shy. Buying books how to get over shy. And listening to Tony Robbins and such. Like, I've always, from a very young age, always had an interest in personal development. I guess naturally, because I've always been like really into progress since high school, in terms of advancing myself. That was always been a high interest of mine. So of course the trajectory would lead up to this, but I definitely had people and events throughout that journey, especially adulting, that would amplify the importance of living happy, being well, and the importance of being empowered and really knowing yourself, and really dissecting any type of negative events or people throughout our life journey stemming from childhood that would covertly allow us to make bad choices or be attracted to toxic things. And I think for me, I was involved in a relationship with a person that had narcissistic personality disorder for a long time, and many years. And so I think once you get to a point where when you're with somebody like that, it just progressively gets worse and worse as time goes. And so once I realized, this is not sustainable, and the consequences of being in a relationship like that to your energy, to your mental health. I mean, it starts to affect your mental health. And me realizing that I was a codependent, thinking, because I was like, I'm strong enough to deal with this. I can mitigate around this. I'm going to use my personal development tools and techniques to, effectively communicate around his chaos, right? And whatever, right? So I just thought I was Superwoman. But the truth is I'm not. No human is. So eventually these people are very sophisticated in terms of the chaos they bring to your life. And it just builds and builds and builds and builds and builds and turns into a huge mountain, and you're like, you have to face the truth, and like I walked away, ended it. But I was left with, why did I stay and tolerate this for so long? So that was the gold and the magic, the key to unlock the door to get to the roots of what the original event or experiences in my childhood that would allow me to tolerate and stay in a relationship like that. So going back to, how in our society, because I didn't have a massive trauma. I did not get beat up. I did not have any financial traumas growing up. I mean, to the outside world, I lived a pretty good life. But, there was micro. Like, I grew up with a father that was a functional alcoholic, and, and there was other things, like in the dynamic, in the relationship dynamics in the familiar home, that was micro, that wasn't so big, like little things, like little psychological toxic things. And so, but even at the time, I didn't pay much attention to it because I was so busy with school and my friends and after school activities, right? So when I left the home, going to university, then getting my first job, I just, then you go and you visit your family, and that's all just gone. It's like it's all good times. And I didn't even like remember that I grew up amongst that. And I think a lot of people do that. It's really easy to do that because we're so caught up in progressing in our careers and progressing in our social relationships and such. We just don't give time, energy to any little micro negative things. However, they still live in our subconscious system, and it will affect the choices that you make. And that's the big lesson that I learned. And so I had to reparent myself in terms of, and learn what healthy relationships look like, and really, really show myself love. And a big part of being hooked into toxic relationships, because people who are toxic like that, they're not always toxic. They know how to dote on you and make you feel special at times, to hook you in so that you don't leave. And then it's like a series of cycles of good and bad. And then ultimately the bad cycles just, are more overbearing than the good cycles. So if you show yourself love, and I had to learn how to commit to showing myself love on a regular basis to really, and now will never ever, tolerate or fall into that particular, dynamic ever again, because of that journey. And because now my nervous system now is familiarized with being calm, and not being familiar with that drama, chaos that these people are addicted to, toxic people are addicted to creating and feeling in their nervous system.
So wow. I thank you so much for being vulnerable and sharing that part of your story with us. And it certainly lends itself to, obviously you talked about this has always been a passion of yours since you were younger, but it does give us a little bit of insight through the window of, how you got to where you are now with that prequel part that I love so much. But I think about others that are currently in the shoes that you were in not long ago. And I'm wondering, for someone who might not even know that they're in that sort of a relationship with a narcissist that you described, what are some of the signs that they should look for to know that this is not right? Like, what are some of the things that they might see that they're not seeing right now because they're kind of lost in that fog, that haze?
Yeah, so there's a lot. One is, they call it gaslighting. So gaslighting is basically, if you call out their negative behavior, they are going to reframe the thought and spin it around that, they'll deny it, and they'll deny your reality, and make it sound like, how dare you? You're the problem for even bringing it up. Like they'll spin it, the responsibility onto you, for even acknowledging that. And they're really good at that, and they have high conviction. Even if you have evidence of their wrongdoings, they'll still remain highly convicted, because they believe in the moment. They actually believe that's why they have this high conviction. They believe in their own story that they're concocting, or their perception, or whatever. So that's one. They go through a series of punishments and rewards. So if you don't do what they want, you will get punished in some form. Either they may ignore you, they may in some form. They'll just punish you because you didn't do what they wanted. And then when you do what they want, you get rewarded. So they're essentially conditioning you. They're slowly enslaving you. They're the master, and you're the slave to their desires and the way they see the world. So they're always in control. They want that power dynamic. And it's just, they deny your reality. Only their reality is reality. Those are some signs of it. Those are some signs.
That's great. Thank you. I think it's just important to pinpoint some of those because there are people who may not even know that's happening to them. And that's a scary thought that, you know, their story is being impeded upon by this control and someone manifesting a life and a reality for them rather than manifesting that life with them or alongside of them or allowing them to manifest their own life, right? So I think, you know, giving themselves a life that they deserve, a life that they want, you know, that helping them to see that this could be something that's keeping them from doing that. Which kind of leads me to a couple of final little thoughts here, questions for you, because again, I appreciate so much your time. I don't want to take too much of it, but obviously happy being well is one way that, you know, you take your experience and try to pay forward a good, a positive in the world. Are there other things that you try and do for individuals or for groups? I know you talked about, you know, some group work that you had done previously, but are there other ways that you try and take your experiences and the things that you've learned and pay those lessons forward to others?
Yeah, so, well, right now on happybeingwell.com, if people visit the blog section, underneath the blog drop down, there's a resources section, and there's a whole list, a number of free ebooks to download around living happy being well, such as, you know, how to banish limiting beliefs, how to banish imposter syndrome, how to cook plant-based meals. There's a free book on wellness for winners that I was a co-author in, that's free for download. There's a free self-care journal. There's a free How to Meditate Easy book. I mean, there's a whole bunch of other books on there too, so that people can go for free and just download those books so they can start their journey to living happy being well. In the future, Happy Being Well will have like a self-care summit online. So if people enroll into the email list on Happy Being Well, enroll into the email newsletter, will get notified when that free self-care summit will happen, where there'll be like a list of top expert speakers, including myself, talking on topics on how to live happy being well through self-care and self-love. It's just super, super important because even myself, it's difficult to even recognize what really self-worth and self-love is. Myself, like looking back on that relationship, I didn't even know I had self-worth issues because I thought I had high self-esteem and self-worth, because I think that we confuse confidence with self-worth and self-esteem. You know, sometimes like we can act confident because, you know, we're competent in our careers or whatever it is. But if you know, in a personal, ultimately really who you are, you know, stripping away those labels, you know, having true self-worth, is beyond a label, beyond, you know, an image.
Well, I'm writing that down because I want to quote that. I love that. It goes beyond an image. I think that's so true. I think there's so much more to the way we should see ourselves than what we look back at in the mirror, right? There's so much more to who we are and so much that we bring to the table.
Yeah, it's not so much look, it's more of a feeling, a knowing. Right. And I got tripped up in that illusion too. I thought I didn't have, people would say, oh, because I'm with him, I have self-worth. I mean, no, I don't. But I was confusing, you know, what I've achieved or progress, or how I'm going to say career progress, or how you look, you know, how you groom yourself, or whatever it is, the confidence with actual true self-worth. I didn't know at that time the difference. So
thank you for that. I think, you know, one last question that that I'd like to ask you before you share where we can find you. Aside from the website, of course, happybeingwell.com. Write it down if you haven't already. What advice would you give to our listeners around, anything that you've talked about tonight, whether it be self-worth, whether it is, living well, or finding that magic, within you? What advice or a couple of things would you tell people who are listening that they should move forward taking away from our conversation?
Yeah, I'm going to say the most important thing is really, really, really getting to know yourself, cultivating a relationship with yourself. And for me, once I spent a lot of time alone, that's when I really, really discovered the magic within myself. And my everything just amplified: creativity, even more confidence, self-worth, just knowing what to do, intuition, having more inner peace, and really committing to actual self-care activities like meditation, doing physical movement, reading. And I enjoy, spending time alone too. I will admit I am an introvert, so it is a very easy thing for me to slip into. But it was a process to get to the point of enjoying alone time, because I grew up, in a time period when I was like in high school and university where we're so conditioned to, I felt like the messages that I was getting, that my self-worth was tied into social groups and going out and, always being around people or being popular, right? So once I, realized like you don't need to always distract yourself from yourself. Like, there's so much magic and so much tranquility when you get to a point where you can enjoy doing things alone and quiet and hear your own thoughts and really be able to self-reflect, take a long bath, meditate in the bath, journal, really get to know what you're made of. Like, what are your values? What are your beliefs? What did you enjoy doing when you were a child? Like, really tuning into, like, for me, I love teaching. And I was a little kid. When I do these activities, I remember all of a sudden I have these light bulb moments of visions. I'm like, oh, when I was little, I spent a lot of time alone, and I would use my imagination and creativity, and I would teach to my dolls. And I would remember, you start to like unravel things that you would do as a child. That's where your real, true, innate passions, genius, talents is when, and when I remember, when my grandfather died, I was around my cousins and we were talking, and we were talking about our childhood, and they brought up something that I totally even forgot, and when I was a kid, I would also write scripts and have them act. I was like acting like a writer and director, and have my cousins act out the movie. I was like, oh yeah, I did that. So there's so much magic. It's like, I can't believe I would do that. I mean, I don't even do that. So I'm just saying, like, there's a lot of intel. We can rich, powerful intel that we can get. So those were things that you just did. No one was telling me to do those things. I didn't learn to do, I wasn't being influenced to those things. That's where the true you is when you're a child, just things that you were doing innately.
That's beautiful. I have a colleague who often says to me that you can't do things with people until you're able to do them with yourself, until you're able to really recognize the things that you need. And I think you so eloquently put it that sometimes it's the things that you're doing on your own that bring you the power to recognize who you are. And I feel like my creativity has been spurred in the last few months by being able to sit by myself and write. And it has just brought out the absolute best in me creatively. I think I'm a better husband because of it. I think I'm a better friend because of it. I just think I'm in a better place because I have this outlet now that I didn't really realize before was something that I was so passionate about. So I hear you say that, and it's that voice of my colleague who has said to me before, you can't help this person over here until you're there for you. And beautifully said, Rita. Thank you so much for that advice, and I think that'll help so many people who want to be the savior for everybody else but forget about the person that they're with the most, the voice they hear the most. So as we wrap up, Rita, I want to make sure that everybody knows where to find you and where they can find all of this insight. And so just list for us your socials, and I'll have it run across the screen as you're talking too. So your socials, with the snap of my fingers, Rita, it's going to appear. So just go ahead and run through all of the places we can find you and where you'd like us to go look.
Yeah, sure. So on Instagram, the handle is Happy Being Well. Facebook, same thing. Happy Being Well is the Facebook page. Facebook.com/Happy Being Well. HappyBeingWell.com. If you hit contact us, if you address Rita, messages will get forwarded to me. Yeah, and then, like I said, I'm writing a book that will be released. So if you search for my name under books, the book will pop up because I'm working on the title still. So again, people can subscribe to the email newsletter on Happy Being Well, and they'll get notified too when the book release comes out as well. So yeah, those are upcoming things: the book and the self-care summit, which the self-care
Awesome.
summit will be online. Because everybody seems to be more comfortable online anyways now these days.
Now, yeah, how about it? And Rita, do me a favor, when the book's ready and the summit's rolling around, shoot me an email. You have my email address, and I'll make sure that I pass it along to the people who listen and follow me on all my social media accounts as well, because I think this is really important information for people to know and understand, to get to know ourselves and really foster that relationship, first and foremost, before we're able to take ourselves out there and be the best possible person for others. So Rita, I can't thank you enough for the conversation tonight. This has been eye-opening. It's been rewarding for me. There's a lot of reflection that I need to go do, I think now, to be my best version. So
listen, I'm still reflecting too over here. It never ends because we've had so many experiences in our lifetime. So yeah.
Well, I'm glad that our stories crossed and that we had a chance to sit down and have a conversation tonight. So thank you so much for joining me, and I hope that you'll stay in touch and pass along any information that I can pass to my followers. And if you haven't already found her on the socials that she talked about, and you haven't already typed in the website to your device that you're listening on, do it now. So thank you so much, Rita. I appreciate it, and hopefully we can talk again soon.
Yeah, for sure, Mike. You could be on the podcast too. I have the Happy Being Well podcast.
I'd be happy to come on.
Great.
Let's do it, Rita. Let's do it. Thanks so much.
For sure. All right.
So what do you guys want to talk about? I just want to once again say thank you to Rita for a couple of things. First and foremost, for the time that she gave to the prequel and all of the insight that she gave, not just into her website and her work, but the idea of self-care and why it's so important and invaluable for us to be our best selves. And secondly, again, for her grace in what happened while I was in Knoxville. Stupid internet, man, and hopefully that won't happen again. I don't know that I'm going to be planning any recordings while I am away anymore, because that didn't feel good. But once again, she couldn't have handled it with more grace and compassion, and I appreciate that so much. So first, again, please make sure that you check out happybeingwell.com. Very cool website, a lot of great things. I can't wait for her book to drop, and once she has a title, I'll certainly let you all know. A couple takeaways for me. First, I want to start with the main message of what I believe is getting to know yourself, and truly what helps you to refill your bucket when it feels empty. To get to know yourself so that you know what you need and be able to communicate that to others in their interactions with you, and helping others to really understand what takes you different places. What takes you to your positive affect, what takes you to your negative affect, and your shame experiences and your frustrations and all of those things. The more you know yourself and understand yourself, the more impactful your relationships can be in your life. And I think about my closest relationships, right? The people who I'm closest with, who can really get through to me, are the people who know me because I've let them in to see who I am, because I know who I am. So I encourage you to get to know yourself and understand what you need to really be able to convey that to others, but also to be in your best moments as often as possible, to maximize your own positives. And that comes from understanding what you need. So I take that away as a main point. You won't be able to help others until you can really help and understand yourself. One of the other things that she said to me during our conversation was, how unaware we can be sometimes of what the outside world does and dictates. We want to be like that person. We want to watch that and react to that and be that. But really, it comes down to us and who we are and who we want to be. Don't let others dictate who you are or who you should be. Deep down, you know who you are. And, she told a beautiful story about a relationship that kind of took her out of that mindset. And I think we've all been in places, maybe not specific to her experience, but places where we get pulled away from who we are and what really matters to us. And we have to be careful of not letting others dictate, or media dictate, or social media dictate, who we are and who we want to be and what our goals should be. So that was another piece that I took away. And I think one for me that I connected to the most was this idea of feeling safe and going down a road of comfort. And I don't need to tell the story. I was in a comfort zone. Public education, 16 years, classroom teacher, administrator. I had settled into this norm, but it was time for me to take a risk in my life, and time for me to step away from the things that were not helping me. They were dictating my world. My health was dictating decisions. I was making decisions around others and not around who I wanted to be and what my goals were. So, I took the risk, and here I am, and I'm trying to do these things to make a greater impact on not just my close world, but the outside world, the world that's that I'm disconnected from. I'm trying to become more connected to that so I can impact more people. And I encourage you that when you feel as though you're in this comfort zone, I understand how that goes through your mind and how you process that comfort zone. It's an easy place to be. But I once had a mentor who said to me, nothing great ever happens in a comfort zone. Nothing great ever happens in the comfort zone. You'll feel stable, you'll feel, you'll go through life kind of feeling, I'm good. And that's okay. If that's you knowing yourself, okay. But if you want to step out of that and reach for greatness, I challenge you to do that. I challenge you to start doing that today. So again, I want to say thank you to Rita for her time, for her insight. I really appreciated all of our conversation, and I stay true to that. If you want me on your show, reach out and I'll come on and we'll hang out a little bit more. But to the rest of you, you know where to find me. You can follow me on Twitter at Mike Azzolina, on Facebook, Mike Azzolina, on TikTok, I'm getting there, I'm figuring it out, at Mike Azzolina 5, on Instagram at Azzolina M. And then my website, of course, www.mikeazzolina.com, where you can check out my blog, which again has been on pause because of everything that's been going on, but you can certainly find some fun little anecdotes there. And the book is coming, folks, so I will keep you posted on that as well. But the book Heartbeats is on the way, and my hope is to have some of my very own heartbeats here on the show with me over the course of the next few months. So I appreciate you all. Thank you so much for listening. Please remember that you are loved and you matter every single day. Go tell a great story. Continue your story, and along the way, make someone else's great too. Much love, everybody. Enjoy the week.